Okay. Now for the fellowship offering, sometimes called the peace offering. There are actually a couple different kinds of these, and we'll discuss those. We're going to read first of all out of Leviticus 3, then we're going to skip down to Leviticus 7, and we're going to discuss the different kinds of fellowship or peace offerings. If someone's offering is a fellowship offering, and he offers an animal from the herd, that's the cattle, whether male or female, so you could offer a female cattle for this one. He is to present before the Lord an animal without defect, again symbolizing perfection. He is to lay his hand on the head of this offering and slaughter it to the entrance of the tent of meeting. So there's that laying on of hands and slaughtering again. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood against the altar on all sides. From the fellowship offering he is to bring a sacrifice made to the Lord by fire. All the fat that covers the inner parts or is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Then Aaron's sons are to burn it on the altar on top of the burnt offering that is on the burning wood. So the wood is burning, as we saw earlier, as an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. There's two kinds of fire. Actually, there's technically three. There's two kinds of fire. There's, I think, this called the Qatar fire, where something is fumed up to God and made, presented as a gift or an offering to God. Then there's the seraph fire, which comes down from God and destroys something. That's where the term seraphim comes from, the angels that destroy things. And then there is the strange fire, which comes from a place that's not authorized. This kind of fire is the kind of fire that transforms something into a gift to God. Now, the creature itself is dead. Okay, we would look at this as an act of pure barbarism because all these animals are dying. And in a way, it is. Like I said, the significance of this, when you lay your hands on this animal and this, because the worshiper was supposed to do that. The priest prepared the dead animal for the burning, okay, and did the burning, but the worshiper himself put his hands on the animals, leaned against the animal, and then killed it. And that was supposed to remind that person that this animal is dying in his place. This animal, which committed no sin and is not capable of committing sin, and is dumb and mute and stupid and an unwitting victim, is dying so that guy, the worshiper, doesn't have to. So there is a point to the barbarism. After all, animal sacrifice was everywhere, and human sacrifice was common. The human sacrifice was never mandated in the law of Moses or God. The closest we come to is when he tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and even then he didn't intend for him to actually do it. He held him back from actually delivering the killing blow. So God never had insisted on human sacrifice, although many of the nations around them did practice it, and the Israelites themselves began to practice it later too. But sacrifice in general was just everywhere in the ancient world. The idea of killing something to earn favor with your gods. That's how you earn favor with them. That was simply how it was thought in the ancient world, that you earn favor with your gods was killing something and offering that to God, to your God. In this case, these animals are being thought of as being transformed into gifts unto God. This fire, you kill the animal, it dies on your behalf. Its blood is shed so that your blood does not have to be. And then it is put on the altar and fumed up to God in this transforming fire, or even a cleansing fire. There is, however, a destroying fire that comes down from God. Fire can be both a cleansing agent and a destroying agent. Keep that in mind because we're going to see that again. Hang on just a second. I'm going to pause this. Resume. Okay, resume. Oh, ow, 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 ooh. Okay. If he offers an animal from the flock, the sheep or the goats, as a fellowship offering to the Lord, he is to offer a male or female without defect. If he offers a lamb, he is to present it before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons shall sprinkle its blood against the altar on all sides. From the fellowship offering he is to bring a sacrifice made to the Lord by fire. Its fat, the entire fat tail cut off close to the backbone, all the fat that covers the inner parts or is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made to the Lord by fire. Now this is a fellowship offering, so a large portion, and we'll get to that in just a moment, a large point of this offering is the meal that you eat after you offer the offering. So in this offering, the part of the food, the part of the animal that's being burnt up to God, is considered as God's portion of the meal. If his offering is a goat, he is to present it before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons shall sprinkle its blood against the altar on all sides. From what he offers, he is to make this offering to the Lord by fire. All the fat that covers the inner parts or is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made by fire, a pleasing aroma. All the fat is the Lord's. They could eat the rest of the animal, but they could not eat the fat. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. You must not eat any fat or blood. The fat represents the best part of the animal, and that belongs to the God. As the first fruits of the harvest belong to God, the best parts of the harvest, and the life of the creature is in the blood. Down to Leviticus 7 for the rest of the fellowship offering explanations for now. These are the regulations for the fellowship offering a person may present to the Lord. If he offers it as an expression of thankfulness, so this is just pure out thankfulness. I'm offering an expression of thankfulness to God. Then along with this thank offering, he is to offer cakes. So we already read about the fellowship offering, the male or female from the herd of the flock. In addition to that, he is to offer cakes of bread made without yeast and mixed with oil, wafers made without yeast and spread with oil, and cakes of fine flour well kneaded and mixed with oil. Along with his fellowship offering of thanksgiving, he is to present an offering with cakes of bread made with yeast. So in this instance, he is supposed to use yeast. Most of the time you could not in your offerings. In this one instance you can. He is to bring one of each kind as an offering, a contribution to the Lord. It belongs to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the fellowship offerings. So the officiating priest, in other words. The meat of his fellowship offering of thanksgiving must be eaten on the day it is offered. He must leave none of it till morning. If, however, his offering is the result of a vow, or as a free will offering, so not an expression of thankfulness. You've either made a vow and fulfilled a vow in the name of the Lord, or a free will. Again, there are different kinds of fellowship offerings. These are the different kinds. You have an offering of thankfulness, an offering of the result of a vow, or a free will offering. The sacrifice shall be eaten on the day he offers it, but anything left over may be eaten on the next day. Any meat of the sacrifice left over till the third day must be burned up, because by then it's starting to decay. If any meat of the fellowship offering is eaten on the third day, it will not be accepted. It will not be credited to the one who offered it, for it is impure. The person who eats any of it will be held responsible. After the third day, the meat starts to decay. And that's where the whole idea of Jesus being raised on the third day comes from. He was dead just long enough to be dead, but not long enough for his body to start decaying. Actually, by our standards, Jesus would have been dead for about a day and a half. He was dead for parts of 3 days. Just short of being long enough for his body to start decaying. Meat that touches anything ceremonially unclean must not be eaten. It must be burned up. As for other meat, anyone ceremonially clean may eat it. But if anyone who is unclean eats any meat of the fellowship offering belonging to the Lord, that person must be cut off from his people. If anyone touches something unclean, whether human uncleanness or an unclean animal or any unclean, detestable thing, and then eats any of the meat of the fellowship offering belonging to the Lord, that person must be cut off from his people. I'm going to go ahead and read the next little section here too in Leviticus 7:22. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, Do not eat any of the fat of cattle, sheep, or goats. The fat of an animal found dead or torn by wild animals may be used for any other purpose, but you must not eat it. Anyone who eats the fat of an animal from which an offering by fire may be made to the Lord must be cut off from his people. And wherever you live, you must not eat the blood of any bird or animal. If anyone eats blood, that person must be cut off from his people." So that was the fellowship offering. Those three kinds of offerings were worship offerings, and they were voluntary. They did not have to be made. They were on the choice on behalf of the offerer to offer those worship sacrifices. The burnt offering, the whole burnt offering represented your dedication of yourself, your life unto God. You give God all that you are. The grain offering represented the results of your labor being offered up to God. You give God all that you have. Now, they were all farmers back then. Okay, today our grain offering wouldn't necessarily be grain, because not very many of us are farmers today. But back in those days, everybody was in agriculture. Everybody was considered to have, everybody was a farmer. Okay? So, your work was your products, your produce. Today, if we were offering up all that we have, we probably wouldn't be offering up food in that sense, because very few of us actually raise our own food today. And then the fellowship offering was a communal meal shared between the worshiper and God, and the worshiper and the priests. And even God got a portion of it in terms of the part that was burned up and fumed to him in the fire. The next couple of offerings are going to be atonement offerings. Now, there always is an element of atonement in these, at least the ones that you kill an animal, because the animal is covering your sin. The animal's blood is covering yours. You're not being killed because this animal's being killed. So the idea of atonement means to cover for someone's sin. So anytime an animal is being killed for these sacrifices, there's always a little bit of an element of atonement in them, no matter what. Like the fellowship offering's primary purpose was to enjoy fellowship with God and with man. But there always is a little bit of atonement in there, because you slaughter an animal and sprinkle its blood out, which represents the atonement on your behalf. Of course, Jesus Christ's blood is the one that actually pays for your sin. These bulls and goats and stuff are not paying for your sin. Jesus Christ's blood does that. But these next two offerings, the sin and trespass offering, are going to be about atoning, specifically about atoning for your sin. In the previous offerings, atoning for your sin wasn't really the main point. There was an element of it, but it wasn't the point of the offerings. These next two, atoning for sin, is going to be the main thing. It's going to be the purpose of the offering. So we'll get to those in just a bit.